a large problem that is very obvious with today's NBA is the lack of distribution of talent of individual players throughout each team in the league. So in the early 2000s, you had players that were not competitive or on competitive teams, but individually had substantial talent. So Michael Redd with the Bucks, Vince Carter with the Raptors, Kevin Garnett with the Timberwolves, barring the beginning of his career when they actually had a chance to compete, Paul Pierce with the Celtics, Ray Allen with the Supersonics. All of these players individually were extremely talented that were on teams that could not compete, but you would still watch them to view their individual talent. Whereas with today's NBA, you have every team pretty much taking the formula of we're going to take as much individual talent in a free agent class or two free agent classes, throw it all together, and we're going to create a team that can compete out of that. And you can see that it's really negatively affected a lot of teams' ability to compete because they stubbornly take this formula and try to get it to work. These obviously are the large market teams. So, for example, I feel like this is the reason why the Knicks are largely have sucked for the last 10 years. You see it now with the Nets that individually sold out first-round picks to acquire Joe Johnson, Kevin Garnett later in his career, Paul Pierce, thinking they could just throw it all together, individually talented players, they were past their prime, compete. It fell apart. They have no future now. Whereas you look at teams like, we'll start with the Boston Celtics in 2007 when they did this, because Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen all spent large chunks of their careers on teams that could not compete. So when they came together, you really didn't mind it as much because you would want to see them on teams that could potentially win titles. You had never seen it before, and you were okay with that. Whereas with the Miami Heat and the Cleveland Cavaliers, you had players that were entering their primes that started to create these conglomerate masses of talent and then just compete for, 5 to 10 years. I mean, who else would quote that not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7? I mean, they know it too. Looking around the league, you pretty much monopolized a sport that is supposed to be team-oriented and competitive. So, and you can see that it has altered the mentality of these individual players because when you see basketball players walk on a court, everyone's buddy-buddy now. And I feel like that's because of the fact that each player is missing that alpha male superstar that in the early 2000s, regardless if teams were or were not competitive, and I've already said this once and I'm stressing it again, that individual superstar influenced their team and would compete against at least one other superstar and their team. No one was buddy-buddy. It was about competing and trying to win that day. So you won't really see players in today's NBA like a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, supremely individually talented players that when they get on a court only care about winning. That's the only thing they're concerned with. They'll dab you up after the game. They'll show their support for you after the game. But during the game, the only thing they're concerned about is winning, grinding you into the ground and killing you. And one player that I see that kind of adopts that mentality, despite his erraticness or lack of consistency, or some people say his mind's going 1,000 miles an hour, is Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has every reason in the world to walk onto a basketball court and smile and dab someone up. He's a supreme athlete. He's incredibly rich. He's on a talented basketball team that has a chance to compete, barring they do not get injured. But if you watch him play, he doesn't even let his teammates dab anyone up or high-five them. He's only concerned about winning. He's a pit bull. He's an alpha male. He's a person. He's a man among men. And that's missing. And in the early 2000s, you had more of these players. It created more individual competitiveness and team competitiveness throughout the league. And it's a shame to see the NBA now where people just try to quickly create quick roster decisions, trade for supremely talented players, players recruiting players on a free agent basis, which I would be okay with had the team that they're trying to recruit to, so let's say Miami or Cleveland, those two teams being the two most prominent, that just suck up all this talent and say we're going to compete here and we're going to dominate here for years to come. And it's a real shame. It's probably one of the big reasons why I really am interested in viewing the Bucks this year, that are a young team that are led by Jabari Parker, whose big free agent signing was Greg Monroe, who, if you took a NBA lottery and just drafted every player in the league right now, wouldn't even be in the top probably 50, 60. They're a homegrown team. They're a young team that has a chance to compete. I respect the hell out of the Oklahoma City Thunder because they're an extremely talented team. Kevin Garnett, drafted. Russell Westbrook, drafted. James Harden, when he was there, drafted. Serge Ibaka, drafted. They're a team that played the system the right way. And the Celtics, for all that they got in 2007 that allowed them to compete with players that were past their prime but had never competed before, gave away the number 2 overall pick to the Seattle Supersonics that was Kevin Durant. So it's not like they didn't even give up anything. It's not like a free agent decided to dip and just go to another team. They sacrificed. So, I mean, it's almost frustrating to think about, but I kind of miss the days when the NBA was a little more balanced. in terms of talent across the entire league. It kind of feels more monopolized, and I feel like that's why it's really suffering compared to the NFL in terms of ratings and popularity. Because in the NFL, one of the things I really love and respect about it is that any given week you can win. Does not matter. And in the NBA, you know with certain teams that the regular season just doesn't matter. It doesn't. And I feel like it's really suffering because of that. But that's just my opinion. I want to know what you guys think. This is Abel with All Things Sports, and I'll see you guys later.